As someone who is incredibly susceptible to positive word of mouth, I, like many others, decided to check out Weapons this past week. It's the latest film by Zach Cregger of Barbarian fame, and really that was all I needed to know it would be worth a watch. Well, that and the fact that Jordan Peele was furious he didn't get the rights to this movie and he fired his team over it. And, having seen the film, I can confidently say it's good. Like, really good. And really unsettling for most of its runtime, too. But I'm not really here to debate that. Unless, of course, you'd want to. Because I'd love to know what you thought of Weapons if you have seen it down in the comments below. Did you love it? Did you just like it? Did it just work for you? Was there anything you weren't a huge fan of? Or things that, in particular, made you fall in love with the movie? Let me know. Anyway, I personally think it's really good. But I do wonder just how good it is. So, is Weapons' fire management team good? I am not so sure about that. But it's certainly an awesome, high-quality horror film with a lot to admire and unpack. From its atmosphere and cinematography to its mostly mysterious story and narrative structure, it gives you a lot as a viewer beyond jump scares and tense moments. And this immersion and enjoyability is dialed up by a really excellent cast. Every single character we followed in the anthology sort of story structure knocks it out of the park. They each feel real, and because of this, we can connect with them just a little bit more. And because of that, we're all the more on edge whenever we feel like they're unsafe. Now, Weapons for my money wasn't as outright scary as Barbarian, but it still offered plenty of unsettling or frightening moments. And none of them really felt cheap as they occurred in the way that jump scares sometimes can. I'd say the highlights of the movie for me are Justine falling asleep in her car, Archer's dream sequence, and James's robbing the house. All of these put me insanely on edge while they were happening, and they were just pure anxiety put into the form of a scene. And outside of the scares, I really love the climax. Cregger has an astounding gift for melding comedy with real tension in a way that doesn't manage to take away from either end of this marriage. Plus, with a finale that's that insane, you can't really go wrong. While you could certainly fill a book with entirely deserved praise for Weapons, there are a few things I was a bit critical of that I did want to bring up. In my mind, these were some things that just caught or snagged for me and kind of just reduced my enjoyment of the film a little bit in one way or another. First off, elephant in the room, I have to argue with Cregger and the themes he denies for this movie. If there ever were a film that was capable of carrying symbolism to represent school shootings, this one was it. However, Cregger is adamant that he did not have that in mind when creating the film. I really cannot abide by this. It just sounds like intentionally obtuse behavior and thought. I mean, come on. Really, man. Your movie, called Weapons, about an entire classroom of kids vanishing, and the grief of parents who cannot accept reality, where there is one suspiciously quiet and removed student, who was ostracized by the missing children and bullied, and as we later learn, was indoctrinated by a malevolent force to harm these children. This was not about our uniquely American recurring national tragedy. This, where a literal assault rifle the size of a city block appears to one of the main characters in a vision, this had nothing to do with that issue. Are you sure about that? I'm sorry, but I'm going to need to advocate for the concept of death of the author here. And I normally despise Death of the Author because of how many brain-dead people cannot grasp things like satirization and depictions of fascism, like in Starship Troopers. And just in general, people are really dumb sometimes and should not be able to declare the meaning of an author's work when they are likely less intelligent about that work than the author. Sure, derive what meaning you will on a personal level, but to broadly paint the creation as representative of one thing or another, especially when the creator does not consider it as such, is something I don't love. But in this case, I am more than happy to make an exception because, come on, man. You cannot be serious. It is a literal assault rifle floating in the sky in your movie, which is titled Weapons. Related to that, I did wonder about a version of the movie where the horror aspects were entirely fictional, and the big unraveling at the end was us learning that every awful thing these people experienced was just various manifestations of their grief from a tragedy that they were unable to process as a terrible and increasingly common part of our god-awful reality. All the social commentary is right there, too, for it to have that interpretation. The dismissal of the issue by authority, the insistence to move on, the clinging to normalcy, the incompetence of leadership and law enforcement who are tasked with resolving the issue but frankly just don't. The relentless, unending desire for a simple boogeyman that the bereaved can point their jagged fingers at. But no, it's just a high-concept thriller about a witch. Sure, man. Whatever. Anyway, last bit here, but some of that witch stuff was straight up nonsensical, in my opinion. For instance, how was this lady haunting Justine and Archer when neither of the two of them knew of her existence, and nor did she know about them by that point in the story? I mean, I understand the witch is haunting James in the woods and stuff, because he was in the house, but the other things were just nonsense, like I said, for cheaper jump scares if you really think about it. I don't want to dwell on it too much because it worked for what it was in the moment, but yeah, it's not great in retrospect. And final point, but I really didn't love the amount of explanation we got on the mechanics of the story. It wasn't inherently bad, per se, but it really felt like it lessened the impact of the story in my mind. Especially with horror, when certain elements of your story lose their mystique, they lose their edge and staying power. It's less scary when you give me detailed lore entries on how the witch's weaponization works, and basically hand over an instruction manual for how you would defeat her. It works in the story, but I don't think it really does much for the story, especially if one was to want to re-watch the movie. But all in all, these are somewhat minor things to pick at, details that I readily admit likely won't impact someone's immediate enjoyment of an excellent and relevant film, and that's whether or not the creator of the film wants to admit it is relevant. You'll have a great time seeing a fantastically unsettling movie in theaters if you do decide to see Weapons, which I absolutely think you should. But you know, maybe it doesn't stay as ingrained in your mind the next time you look into a dark corner of your room or walk alone down a sidewalk at night. Still, though, definitely see it. It's a great movie with a fantastic premise that really gets utilized pretty effectively. I give Weapons a 3.5 out of 5 stars and an absolute recommendation, even if you aren't huge on horror movies. Go check it out. Until next time.